Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Canadian Research Security Weekly Roundup. This is episode 25, and it is Friday, November 28th, 2025. It is great to have you with us. And a quick heads up, if you haven't already, you should really check out our new video format over on Spotify or YouTube. It's a great way to follow along with the visuals we're going to be discussing today.
So, what's on the docket this week? Well, we've got a huge debate brewing here in Canada over what sovereign AI really means. Then we're going to zoom out to look at the massive global tech race and figure out where we fit in. And it all leads to this central tension, this tightrope walk between open research and national security. Let's get into it. All right, let's start right here at home. Canada is an absolute powerhouse in AI research, but that success is creating some, let's call them growing pains. It's sparking a really fierce debate about where the country is headed. And this whole debate really comes to a head with Nokia's new campus on Ottawa. On one side, you have the government, who are pouring $72 million into it and hailing it as a gold standard for building up our own AI capabilities and creating jobs. But on the other side, you've got people like Shopify CEO calling it a toxic subsidy for a foreign company. The argument is, are we just turning Canada into a branch plant nation? It really gets to the heart of the question. Are we investing in our own future, or are we just renting it from someone else? And while the government's looking at that big picture strategy, AI is causing a real crisis on the ground in our universities. Take the University of Manitoba. They've seen a huge surge in AI-related academic misconduct, and it's totally overwhelming the system. I mean, look at this quote. Professors are being forced to become investigators instead of teachers. It's causing massive backlogs and putting a huge strain on the entire educational system. Now, these debates we're having here at home, they're not happening in a vacuum. Not at all. To really get a sense of the pressure Canada's under, we need to look at the global power play happening right now over AI. The stakes are getting higher literally every single day. And you can't talk about a power play without looking south of the border. President Trump just launched what they're calling the Genesis mission. Think of it like the Apollo moonshot, but for AI. The goal is to unleash artificial intelligence across every single U.S. science agency, opening up massive federal datasets and supercomputers to just supercharge American innovation in everything from medicine to energy. It's a huge move. So how on earth can a smaller country like ours compete with that? Well, here's a fascinating take from Lion Jones, who's actually one of the key scientists behind the current AI boom. He says countries like the UK, and you can definitely include Canada in this, shouldn't even try to compete head-on with the American and Chinese hyperscalers. His advice? Be brave. Find a unique niche, and build AI that actually challenges us instead of, as he puts it, the sycophantic chatbots we have today. I love that. And it really looks like Canada is taking that kind of advice to heart. Just at the G20 summit, Prime Minister Carney announced a brand new partnership with Australia and India. It's called ACT. And it's a super strategic move to team up with other democracies on key areas like clean energy, supply chains, and of course AI. It's a clear strategy of building alliances instead of trying to go it alone. But look, all these big ambitions, whether they're at home or abroad, they all run on money. So for this next section, let's do just that. Let's follow the money and look at the dilemmas that pop up along the way. And here is the tough reality check. For all the talk about innovation, Canada's investment in research and development is lagging badly. As you can see right here, we are way below the average for developed countries and just miles behind the US. Experts are warning that this isn't just a number on a chart, it is a direct threat to our ability to compete, period. And the dilemmas get even trickier when you look at projects like Quebec's biggest wind farm. So Hydro-Quebec is using turbine blades from China, but they're refusing to say who the supplier is, citing confidentiality. And that raises a really tough question, right? Is this just standard business practice, or is it a way to avoid some tough questions about ethics in a supply chain? It's that classic clash between our green energy goals and the need for transparency. And hey, this funding crunch is not just a Canadian problem. Down in Australia, the success rate for grants for early career researchers has hit an all-time low, just 13.1%. Think about that. That means almost 9 out of 10 of their brightest young minds are getting rejected. That is absolutely devastating for the next generation of innovators, and it's a huge warning sign for the health of the entire global research ecosystem. At the very same time, though, new money is flowing into Canada. The UAE's Technology Innovation Institute is opening a lab right inside MILA, Montreal's world-famous AI hub. Now, that's a partnership that promises some major breakthroughs for sure. But, as a lot of people have pointed out, it also brings up some really complex questions about collaborating with nations that have, shall we say, very different human rights records.
So all of this, the global competition, the funding dilemmas, these new and sometimes tricky partnerships, it all brings us to the central challenge of the week, maybe of the decade, walking that security tightrope between the openness that science needs to thrive and the protection it needs to survive.
And here's a perfect Canadian example of what we call dual-use technology. Researchers at the University of Calgary built this cool sensor network for a purely scientific reason, to study space weather. But then they discovered it's also incredibly good at detecting GPS jamming, which is a major national security capability. So all of a sudden, this simple science project is something the military and NATO are very, very interested in. This kind of tension is completely reshaping global partnerships. New data shows what's being called the Great Decoupling in research between the US and China. Collaboration has just plummeted since its peak back in 2019. And as that door closes, China is actively building deeper research ties with countries like Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Iran, especially in really sensitive areas like quantum computing and AI. The whole map of global science is literally being redrawn right before our eyes. And if you want to see just how fast this landscape is changing, get this. Back in 2018, only 12 countries even had formal research security policies. It was a pretty niche concern, you know? Okay, now fast forward to today. That number has exploded to 41. This isn't just some slow shift, folks. This is a global policy earthquake. It just goes to show you how central research security has become to national security, basically everywhere. And this quote just perfectly captures the tightrope we're all on. The big fear is that if that pendulum swings too far towards security, with sweeping restrictions and tons of oversight, we could end up dismantling the very open networks that drive innovation in the first place. It's a total paradox. In our effort to protect our research, we run the risk of smothering it. And that leaves us with the fundamental question, doesn't it? How do we protect our research without losing the very openness that allows it to thrive? Getting that balance right, that is the challenge, not just for Canada, but for the entire world. A lot to think about this week. Thanks for tuning in.